Welcome to the Answers for Elders radio show. Meet the trusted experts who will give you straight answers and will help guide you on the path of later life care. Now, here's your host, founder, caregiver, and CEO, Suzanne Newman.
And welcome back, everyone, to Answers for Elders Radio Network. And we are here with the amazing Denise Medved, who is the CEO and founder of Ageless Grace.com. And for those of you that get on the internet or have access, I encourage you to get on this website. I have to say, I spent 45 minutes probably last night going through all of this stuff that's there. It's amazing for us. And like we talk about 15 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day could make a huge difference in our quality of life in the future. And especially those of us that are aging and in our 60s and 70s, this is the time to start moving, to start doing these things. And so Denise Medved, you created this amazing story out of a backstory from you. So would you tell me a little bit about your inspiration?
Sure. There are two or three parts to that. First of all, I was born with a form of spina bifida. I was not as serious as many children who are born with that diagnosis, not in a wheelchair as a child.
Mm-hmm.
However, I was told that I would be in a wheelchair by the time I was 40, if I was lucky.
Wow.
And so I pretty much spent my whole life doing everything I could to keep that from happening. That meant staying physically active. It meant stretching, moving, doing all kinds of physical activities that would keep my back strong and healthy and keep my whole body strong and healthy. So I already had that propensity for movement as a healing tool in my life and how to improve my quality of life. Then I saw my parents aging completely differently, even though they had the same food, they lived in the same house, they did everything together for 47 years and before my father passed away from cancer. And what I saw happening was my mother, who was a brainiac, who studied, who took courses, who taught courses, who played the piano, who learned new pieces every week, who read books avidly, and I mean real books, not simple, easy things, who did the New York Times and London Times crossword puzzle, but hated exercise or movement of any kind. I saw her losing not only her memory and her cognitive function, but she was actually diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And at that time, when that happened in the early 2000s, they were saying, oh, if you do crossword puzzles and word games, you'll be cognitively fit the rest of your life. Well, immediately I said, what? She has Alzheimer's? My mom, who studies, who works, who writes, who reads, there's no way that my mom has Alzheimer's if that's true. So I immediately started doing research to find out why could someone have Alzheimer's, even though they did all the things they were saying. Now, the second thing that was happening was I was watching my dad, who spoke English as a second language and who was very physical. He was a gymnast, he was a weightlifter, he was a bodybuilder. And I saw my dad staying sharp and fit and in control of himself and cognitively sharp all the time. And I said, well, that's interesting. You'd think my dad, who never studies, never reads, doesn't teach courses or take courses because it was difficult with him with English as a second language, is cognitively fit. So as I started doing my research, both initially on the internet and then by going to take a graduate program in gerontology and then later on graduating from the Neuroscience Academy in Sydney, Australia, I was learning more and more. And what was happening at the same time that I was learning about all this was there was research being done. So suddenly one day on the internet, the word neuroplasticity popped up. And I said, well, wonder what that is. And now, of course, there are millions of references to neuroplasticity on the internet. But at that time, it was a new thing that they had discovered. And that's our ability to change the form and function of our brain, specifically stimulated by physical movement, because they have discovered that the primary function of the brain is to control movement of the body. So when we do some kind of movement, especially movement that's new or unique to us or a little out of the box, out of the ordinary, or when we're learning some new physical skill, those things stimulate the firing of neurons, which are brain cells. And of course, that's what we need to do to stimulate the cognitive function of our brain, to cause neuroplasticity to occur so that we can change our brain and make it more resilient and stronger all the time for a better quality of life.
Wow. And you mentioned earlier that, puzzles and jigsaw, puzzles and things like that, they used to talk about that. Why don't they work? What is the issue?
Well, I talked a little earlier about the 5 primary functions of the brain.
Right.
So each of those different games or word games or crosswords, number games, they affect a certain part of the brain or a certain function of the brain, maybe 2 functions, but not all of them. So I like to compare it to brushing your teeth. If you brushed your teeth every day just in the front and no place else, you'd be doing a great job with your front teeth.
Right.
But everything else would decline and you would have tooth decay. So if you only work 1 or 2 functions of the brain all the time, they will be sharp, but the other functions will be failing, and that will be overall cognitive decline, dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, some other form of decline from the brain.
Well, and it's so important when you look at aging. I think one of the things that seniors tend to do is they cocoon. If they start losing function, things like that, or they, feel like maybe they can't drive anymore, or if you're a family caregiver, you're taking care of a loved one or a spouse, you're sitting there with them. You're not doing what you need to be doing to take care of yourself. And obviously, we're going to talk this hour a little bit about, hopefully, you're going to share some tips and things with us as we're talking about. But I'm really interested. Obviously, there's this whole aspect too of humor, of laughter. That's also a physical activity, isn't it?
Absolutely. And one of the components of this program is that there are 21 tools, we call them, or exercises that you do, again, from a seated position in order to engage the brain. It has nothing to do with your balance or your age or any of that. Whether you're 7 years old, because we have the same program is called Forever Fit for Kids, or whether you're 107, you sit in a chair to be able to do this because you have to figure out how to do it. So one of the things that's built into this is it's done to music because music affects the brain on a very high level. It's done also with great imagination, a lot of metaphor, a lot of visual that we use all the time. And it's done with humor. It's hysterically funny. Sometimes I have 30, 40 people in a room laughing like crazy because they are trying to figure out how the heck would we do this. And so the laughter is very important, and the social interaction. We do have classes that are offered online on Zoom, for example. We have videos that offer classes, and then there are 3,600 people teaching this as of now, and every weekend we have more people trained. So there are also live classes that you can go to that are being taught all over, as I mentioned earlier, in 50 states and 33 countries.
And everyone, Denise and I, we will be right back right after this. We at Answers for Elders thank you for listening. Did you know that you can discover hundreds of podcasts in our library on senior care? So visit our website and discover our decision guides that will help you also navigate decision making. Find us at answersforelders.com.